What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the B Main with myself, Gavin Grubbs, and my co-host Scott Shive. Well, this weekend was a huge weekend in racing. Me and Scott were both at the track, and it was actually a weekend of a lot of debuts. Jesse Love made his NASCAR Cup Series debut. Keelan Harvick made his Cars Tour debut. Ricky Thornton Jr., the super late model ace, made his debut in a Silver Crown car, which I'm not sure anybody saw coming. And Scott, you made a pretty big debut yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did make my FloRacing debut, and it was not in the car, which hopefully someday that will also be a thing. I made my FloRacing debut at South Boston Speedway, announcing over there. So if you hear any scratch in my voice, which I think there is right this moment, that is why. We were at the track for a long time, but we'll get into that when me and Gavin both talk about our weekends.
Yeah, but the one last piece of big news actually is about the Cars Tour. So we're going to talk about that. They announced their biggest payout weekend in history, and it's going to be for their throwback weekend at Hickory. Scott, I don't know if you saw that, but did you see the total winnings purse? They're throwing out over two races, over $200,000 for the two races put together. Dude, I think $50,000 goes to the winner of the late model stock race and $30,000 for a pro late model race. I mean, that's insane.
Well, and I heard about it. I saw it immediately when it got posted on Friday. And one of the interesting things was I heard that Dale Jr. actually, this is not confirmed. I heard that Dale Jr. did throw some of his own money at it, and he does not do that often. But this is another one of those things where they're really trying to, continue to get the Cars Tour out there and continue to grow it and its audience. And look, with a $200,000 purse, I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's crazy.
And I mean, to kind of piggyback off that, when you go back and look at the announcement of Fox Sports 1 carrying the race from North Wilkesboro, you kind of got to think that maybe, depending on how the ratings go, that this race also might get picked up as a Fox Sports race on a last-minute deal as a possibility. That's
I don't know.
I
think that's a reach.
That's just that is my pure speculation and a reach. But I mean, the Cars Tour is on fire lately. I mean, I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
Well, no, definitely not. And I think this weekend was a huge success. Because going to Cordele, where they've never been before, a track that I love. I mean, you know me. I love super late models with asphalt racing, and ASA has been there for a long time. They've got Speed Fest, and Bubba Pollard always dominates down there, but. Timothy and I have gotten to talk about it, and I really, Timothy's not here again. He has been so out of it the past week, and so he has not been able to watch all of our stuff, so he's not here this week. So sad, because he would have a ton of great insight about this, because he has raced at Cordele quite a lot. But I love that track because it's interesting. It's a short track that has multi-groove, and we don't see that quite as often. We see a lot of short tracks that can be multi-groove, but not in a way that Cordele can. You can run the bottom, you can run right next to the wall, but you can also run that middle lane, which is actually becomes the most preferred if you can learn how to run it right, as well as it doesn't have the outside walls in, except for on the front stretch, so you can see a lot of stuff from that. You can save a car, you're not going to destroy a car. It can also create some moments like we saw some certified air Doug.
Yeah, Certified Air Doug might be the new heir to the Chastain Watermelon dynasty after going through that field on the backstretch.
Also, didn't realize that field was so deep. I don't think I've ever seen a Cordele race that wasn't at night, because the Pro Late models, something was off in there. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of land.
Yeah, no, it goes way
Doug
back
Barnes
there.
Jr. really explored most of it.
Yeah, he was at least 50 yards off the track, and you got to give it to him for getting back out on the track and having terrible rebound.
That and the car didn't look damaged at all. I thought it was going to come out of there muddy, because it didn't rain like crazy. I think it was a little mushy. I think there was a little moisture. So with that long grass, I was really expecting to see some mud or something on the car. But he came out of there and looks like he was never there. What was it? What did he finish? Let me look. He finished in 10th. He finished top 10. After all the craziness and everything around there.
Yeah, no, and one thing I didn't even realize, and I wasn't even thinking about it when I watched it, how did he not have suspension damage? Because, I mean, on a race car that you want to be fast, you have to have a stiff suspension, and when you go off,
he hit that
he
right
drove
side
through a field.
hard. Here's the thing. I mean, you've seen it on tracks where you've got in dirt where cars will just launch, and it's a pretty similar thing here with asphalt. That banking rolls off and it dips down onto a hill. And so when he did that, he's slamming the right sides. So I got to imagine he was running in the top 5 at the time, and that was right at the beginning. So I think with him only being able to get up to P10, he might have had some damage, but his car was still good enough to get back to P10. Because I would say the late model stock race was a little bit more controlled than the pro late model race.
That pro late model race was...
Dude, I thought it was still great.
It was a great race. It was just...
And here's the thing. I think they didn't say it anywhere, but I think that was a record for number of cars in a race. It was 30 cars.
I mean, that's a good field number for any series, not just technically a regional pro late model series. I mean,
well, and the thing is, I think
30 good cars.
There were some times last year where I think they were getting about 12.
Yeah, I remember seeing a few races where it just wasn't a very deep field, and
and
especially near the top, there wasn't a deep competitive field. I mean, you had Caden Quapple, Connor Jones, and that was it.
Yeah, well, and one of the things is the big reason for that is a lot of those pro late model guys have run at Cordele either in pros or supers, and so it's very common ground for them. And I think this is one of the first times that the Cars Tour has gone to a track that is so overlapping with ASA, super late model, because supers and pros are more southern. Pros reach up into the Northeast a little bit more than supers, but that is really their hometown land. Georgia, Alabama, Florida is their home game. And so Cars Tour coming right down to Georgia was a huge deal. And I think that's why we got so many cars. I mean, we saw guys like Jet Noland, who runs pro late models all the time. He's a regular over there, actually. Who else? Let me look through my list. I'm in the LMSC. Colin Allman, which I want to talk about him. I might have 2 badass moves of the week. What about it? Keelan Harvick's already his deal. I don't know. There's just a lot of guys. We saw Hudson Bolger come out. He's run pro late models a lot. He did really well. Augie Grill actually ran. He ran.
I didn't realize that was Augie. Yeah, I did not realize that was Augie. I saw that it was a Grill, and I was like, well, I remember Timothy talking about how Augie doesn't really race anymore, so I didn't even think anything of it.
Yeah, well, he races every once in a while. He still loves to get behind the car. But anyway, I say that because there were a good Casey Roderick ran in this race, and I was really rooting for Casey. But you saw what happened.
What didn't happen in that race?
I don't know. Look, here's the thing. I did not expect Keelan Harvick to qualify on pole. And here's the thing. I think Keelan Harvick is good, and I think he proved a lot of the doubters wrong about saying, oh, well, he's already in pro late models at only he's 13, right?
He's 12.
Okay, a lot of people are like. Yet. Well, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know. Even you and I talked about, is this too quick? And I like what Timothy said when we talked about that. If you can get the results and you're competing, then it's not too quick. And here he is. He was leading. I think
he led 30 laps. He led the first 30 laps.
And I think if he hadn't made the shift mistake that he did, I think he could have battled with Tristan McKee for the win.
And, I mean, that's another thing is you think about how young Tristan McKee is. Keelan Harvick is 2 whole years younger at the amount of racing that everyone does now. Hundreds of less races of experience, and he's already competing at that level. And that's what really impressed me isn't that, oh, well, he only finished 6th or 7th, and, he's in the best car in the field. But, I mean, he looked like he belonged on the track.
I was going to say, and yes, he's got probably one of the best cars in the field. We know that car is extremely well prepared. I mean, when it's one of those things, he is a good driver, but he does have a good bit of money to play around with, with his dad, and so. But that is one of the things, and we can see that he has the talent to back that up. It'd be different if it was a guy in a seat that absolutely that car should be fighting in the top 5, fighting for wins, and it'd be a driver that, couldn't put it in the top 10. He'd be running maybe in the back of the 15s, probably right inside of the top 20. But Keelan, I mean, he proved himself, and so you got to give him the respect for that. And even I would say he's starting to impress me. I mean, obviously he impressed us in when he ran in Legends, and he's impressed us when he started to do some of the limited late model stuff, and now this, of course. But I would say he and Tristan McKee have impressed me the most in terms of their maturity and their respect on the racetrack. Because here's the thing, McKee has gotten involved in some stuff, a lot not of his own doing, and he has really just stayed with it. As well as in this race, we saw him fighting inside the top 5 pretty much all night long, but then he gets up to the fighting with Colin Allman after Keelan had fallen back. Colin Allman was leading. And you see Tristan McKee, they get a restart. McKee's on the top side, Allman on the inside, and McKee works the outside. They fight close, but they fought with great respect. McKee did it from the outside. He pinched him down, but cleanly. Like, he drove an amazing race to get it on that restart and walk away with it. I mean, it's really impressive. And so we talked about for both of those two drivers, is it too early? Is this too fast? And I think that they're really proving a lot of people wrong. I wouldn't say that I ever thought, oh, yeah, no, they shouldn't be here. But it was definitely something to talk about and something to question. I think they have gone and proven that this is where they deserve to be.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these young drivers is people are going to complain no matter what happens. If they didn't get moved up, if they were setting dominating Legends races in Bandolero races, they're like, why aren't you moving these kids up? This isn't fair for everybody else on the track. But then as soon as you move them up, you're going to have people, oh, they're moving up too fast. I mean,
yeah,
you're not going to please every fan, so you just got to do what you think's best for your career.
Yeah, no, and I think his dad is doing a good job. Like, I really think I love getting to listen to Harvick on his podcast, and I think Harvick is very much a traditionalist in terms of he's got a lot of money, but he's not gonna put Keelan in something that he isn't ready for. He's gonna give him a challenge, but he's not gonna be like, oh, we can pay to do this, whatever.
He's not gonna set him up to fail.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think is, you were just mentioning. I think Kevin Harvick ended up being one of my favorite drivers by the time he retired, and I spent the better part of my childhood and teenage years despising Kevin Harvick.
Me too.
And then near the end of his career, really the last 3 or 4 years of his career, I was like, man, I like this guy. He's becoming one of my favorite drivers.
Yeah.
And I think it really had to do with the start of Keelan's racing career and kind of him looking at racing through more of a owner and mentor role as opposed to a racer role.
Right.
I think that might have been what changed my opinions on him. And in my opinion, I would rather have Kevin Harvick run the sport of NASCAR as anybody else right now. I mean, if you gave me a ballot and said, write in somebody to be president, authority, basically the dictator of NASCAR, I would write down Kevin Harvick's name in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, and another person I want to shout out in this race was Colin Allman. I don't know if you know him. He's in that 67. Do you know him?
I hadn't really heard that much of his name before. I think I've heard it a few times, just in passing, but I know absolutely nothing about him, but I noticed him doing really well.
Yeah, I hadn't until I went to the Rattler. He ran in the pros and the supers in the Rattler, and I think it was in the pro race he finished second, and in the super race he finished third. And here's the interesting thing about it. It is him and his dad that work on that car. And they have figured it out. Timothy has talked about the struggles of being a family-owned team, and it's been hard to figure out the super for them. And that's I know Timothy and his dad personally, and they are both amazing. And, oh, my gosh, you wouldn't believe the amount of knowledge that Timothy's dad knows. He knows how to do it. But there's just still something they quite haven't gotten to figure out with this Super. Just with the way it runs, we got guys that run. They've got whole teams. They've got guys working on this, and they just get in the car. And so, but here's the thing. Allman and his dad, for whatever reason, they have figured it out. And they have gone out there, and they have really impressed as a family-owned team. And so I thought, in a field of 30 cars, going out there and finishing second against guys like Tristan McKee, who, that car has full-time work on it. Jet Noland, I know he's more family, but I know he's got a good team behind him. TJ DeCare, he's younger, but he's got a team as well. Obviously, Keelan Harvick. Hudson Bolger's got a little bit of money behind him with Byron and stuff. Pretty much a lot of that top 10. Isaac Kitzmiller, he runs with Rackley War. So a lot of this top 10 is a lot of guys that have a good bit of help behind them. And here you have Colin Allman, him and his dad, go and finish P2.
Yeah, I didn't realize that about him, that it was a family-owned team. I mean, with the car running that good, and I didn't realize he was that young either. I just assumed that he was one of these full-time guys with a lot of experience.
He's mid-20s, so he's not too young.
He is a lot compared to the rest of the top 10, he's old.
Yeah. That is very true. But I thought the pro race was really good. Obviously we had that big stack up with TJ DeCare starting all that, and it's hard because as a fan I'm like, oh my gosh, they're wrecking. But then I'm like, you and I have been around racing enough to know that hurt a lot of people. Like in terms
that was an
of
expensive wreck.
Yes, like again, everyone was fine in their bodies, but that was an expensive one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I thought the race itself was pretty good. I think I was surprised to see as many missed shifts on the restarts. I think that was a pretty common problem. I don't know what was up with that.
Did you see the interview with Dale Jr. after the late model stock race of him talking about the shifts?
No, what'd he say?
He was talking about how the pro late models and late model stocks both use an older transmission than a lot of the NASCAR cars do, and a lot of anything kind of at a higher level. And he was talking, I think it was about Tristan McKee missing a shift in the late model stock race, and he was talking, I'm sitting there on the backstretch, I pop the clutch and shift third, fourth to get muscle memory in my arm, and that's probably something that these young kids don't really know to do. And sure, they're messing up on these shifts now, but I mean, with practice, it'll be fine. And at this point, this is going to be the hardest car to shift they're going to race for the rest of their career.
Right. Yeah, and that's
pretty
fair.
About how much travel there is between third and fourth gear on the transmission that these cars are both running.
Well, I bet, and the thing is, third to fourth can be pretty easy, but the spring load in those transmissions, it automatically wants to go to neutral. And so when when you've got it, you can see me now.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah,
I forgot. When you go from, you're obviously up in third. When you're pulling down to fourth, it's easy. You'll want to just pull.
Catch.
It wants to go here, and it wants to go back to neutral. And so just because that's where its spring naturally wants it to go. So when you pull it to third, you have to also be pushing it to the right at the same time. And a lot of them probably just focused on pulling down instead of down and right, just to make sure it sticks.
And especially with these younger drivers, you got to think, this is, I know they've all
Not
have a
quite
lot of experience.
as much muscle development.
Yeah, and obviously they have a lot of experience driving a race car, but aren't Legends cars and Bandolier, those are sequential shifters, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so this is
it just knocks.
They don't have a lot of experience driving a traditional 4-speed stick shift.
Yeah. Well, and it's just there's so much tension on it. Because you'll push the clutch in, and it's just you think, I look at my Logitech shifter, and it's just I could do it with like my 3 fingers or my pinky.
It's like it's like the joystick on my chair right here in my hand.
There's
like
just
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's just,
that's the best way to describe.
There's so much spring load. And it's tough. So I can very much understand it for a lot of them, but I thought it was a good race. And then on late model stock, I thought it was a great race too. I just thought Cordele really put on a great show all across the board, because I think the battle between Connor Hall and Minnie Tyrell if that was the
That
only
lasted
thing
the whole race.
if that was the only thing that happened all race, that would be amazing in itself.
And talk about two clean drivers.
Oh my gosh. I think those will be your title fighters.
I think that's what we talked about last time we talked, is how the two of them really are taking over that spot left by Brendan Queen, Carson Kvapil, and Brent Cruz.
And the interesting thing is, Minnie has been in the Cars tour for quite a while. Connor Hall obviously has as well, but Connor Hall has obviously I think he's found a good spot with Junior Motorsports. He's been to a couple teams over the past couple of years. He ran with Nelson last year. He did well. I think he won 2 races, but he could never quite find that consistency. And I think with JRM he really has. But here's the thing, Minnie Tyrell has been running his car for 4 years. He's a family-owned team. And I just think they've done this for so long now that they've continued to advance in figuring out the setups and because I think Minnie has had the driver talent, but I think it's been setup and car that has really plagued them for a long time. And I just think this year they have found something new within their family team that he is now can continually compete up at the top.
Yeah, and he's just really impressed me. And like you said, it just seems like their cars are faster. His driving style hasn't changed at all.
No.
And obviously has so much experience. It's just everything is finally clicking at the right time, at the right place. But I mean, you're talking about wrecks early on in the race. You had McKee. Carson Lofton seemed like he was involved in every wreck.
Yeah, and yet somehow he finished 9th.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say he was driving very aggressively.
Yeah, same thing happened with.
Which is
he wasn't
one
driving
thing,
really aggressively, but
Yeah.
Landon S. Huffman seemed like he was in every wreck as well.
Yeah, and I think that was a little more unfortunate. I think I can't remember who he got into at one point. Oh, I think it wasn't Dale Jr. Dale Jr. was inside of him, but I can't remember. Oh, it might have been Hind. Yeah, it was Hind that he got into. Speaking of which, I was really impressed with Hind. Obviously, I've watched him a lot in super late models and pro late models.
He's a great driver.
He is a great driver, which I think it's so cool now because I've talked to him personally. That night when I was at the Rattler, me and him across the table at the hotel just chatting it up like it was nothing. And so for him making his late model stock debut, I was really impressed. I'm surprised they also didn't bring their pro late model and race in the pro race.
Yeah, that kind of shocked me is why he was racing with Lee Pulliam, but he didn't bring his own pro late model. I was like, you've brought your pro late model to Cars Tour races before. Why is it not here?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think what is it for? What was I think it was just under 40 to go, and he had gotten spun for the second time. And with all the stuff that went down in the last 40 laps, he got back to 8th. And he was before all of that, he was running in the top 5. I think he was a top 5 car.
Speaking of that spin, Ryan Wilson managed to spin all 3 Lee Pulliam cars.
And yeah, and I don't know much about Ryan Wilson, but
I don't either. I'm not going to say anything.
Well, from how Eric Brennan has talked about him before, it sounds like it's a family-owned operation as well. It sounds like he's pretty cool and calm. But I feel like it might have been one of those things where he might have been a little bit aggressive, but that might have been just one of those coincidences where he was fighting hard and
yeah. No, I'm not talking too bad about him.
No.
Funny that one driver gets together with an entire team over the course of a race is the point I'm making.
Well, and there were 3 cars out there for him.
Yeah, and like if you said, if it's a family-owned team and he doesn't have a lot of Cars Tour experience, it's easy to get over-aggressive and to push too hard when you're racing against a field that is stronger than what you're used to competing against, and you're running in the middle of the pack and you're competing with some of the best of the best. I mean, it's easy to push to 110% instead of 100% and start making mistakes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was so upset. I swear, every time Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets in a Cars Tour race, something happens. Like, for the first time, he didn't qualify at the back of the pack. Dale Jr. has said it himself, he is a terrible qualifier. And he went out, and I think he qualified in the top 15. And that was big for him because he said himself he's not a good qualifier. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, he's definitely going to have a chance to be fighting up near the front, right near the end of the race. He's running piece inside the top 6. And that big stack up with McKee happens, and I got so upset. I was like, I saw a top 5 for him just fade away.
it seemed like Dale Jr. has had bad luck for the past since his since his regular NASCAR career retirement. It just seems like every one-off race he gets in, he just has bad luck. I mean, how about leading the Xfinity race for so long at Bristol and he catches on fire?
Yeah. Well, and then
I mean,
running from what 38th to second in the South Carolina 400, and then what is it? I think they blew. I don't remember what the car dumped itself.
yeah. If there's anybody that has the worst luck in racing, it might be Dale Jr.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I hope he's running a good few races this season for the Cars Tour, the most he has ever run before, and so I hope that he can get some good results because I do too. And here's the thing: at his age, especially in the Cars Tour, he is so competitive, and I love to see
50.
it. I mean, we know that he is an amazing driver, and especially in his day, had great talent. But he's still got it, and I love to see it. I'm one of the biggest fans of Dale Earnhardt Jr. I love listening to the DJD.
I became one of them.
I want to work for Dirty Mo Media. I want to work for him, but not just to work for him. I love what Dirty Mo Media does, and I think I fall right into their wheelhouse. Dirty Mo Media, I'm applying for your internship. Please pick me up. If not, I want to work for you full time next year. What? I'm not trying to plug myself at all. Andrew Kurland, I've texted you. Please. Anyway.
Better text that back.
Yeah, well, look, he's so great. He really is. Also, another great drive from Landon Huffman. He really, we saw him move to Carroll S Speed Shop midway through last year after he was out. Actually all of last year after his run with Nelson Motorsports in 2023, and last year they did not have it. I mean, he finished outside the top 15 in most races, but right now they have clicked. He was running second at Wake County, got in that incident with Ryan Millington, didn't finish where he should have, but here runs. He was top 5 all night, and he finishes P3.
Yeah, I mean, that's another shout out. That's one of those other drivers. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't do anything overly aggressive. He might not be the number one driver in the field, but by the end of the race, especially this year, I mean, I know we're only, 3 races in. It just seems like he finds himself in the top 5 or top 10 at the end of every race so far this year.
Yeah, I think it's been really impressive. And obviously, at the end of the day, Connor Hall wins it. I just love the battle, but it seemed like that, many started using that middle line. Probably about lap 25 or so, but once he got away from him, Connor Hall started to use that line, and I think once he did, that line with his car was faster than many, and many just couldn't catch him.
I really liked his quote in Victory Lane, which I'm paraphrasing just a little bit. It's probably not going to be word for word. He said, "I don't know what clicked, but it definitely had to do something with Minnie driving away from me, and I didn't like him driving away from me."
Yeah, well, I mean, he decided to move up, and he found something new. So, but yeah, I loved the event from this weekend. Where do they go next? Oh, Orange County, right?
Sure.
I think that's what they said.
I think it is what they said. I think they have a couple weeks of a break.
Yeah, I think that's what they said. Speaking of late model stock cars, do we want to talk about my weekend?
I think we do want to talk about your weekend because I still haven't heard that much about it. You've been keeping your secrets from me.
I have. Well, you haven't even gone back and watched my stuff yet.
That's also fair.
Well, anyway, I couldn't tell y'all because it wasn't yet official when we did our last episode, but I am the new announcer at South Boston Speedway alongside with Kyle Haney, and it's awesome. But here's the thing. I live in Starkville, Mississippi in college, and South Boston is 11 hours away from me. So there's 10 weeks where we have racing events. So for each one, I will travel. And so I did my first travel this weekend. I left on Friday at like 8 a.m., and obviously I got there at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And so it was about 12 hours on the road for me. Before this, I have never driven more than 5 hours on my own. And
boy.
Yeah. But hey, look, it was honestly, it was pretty nice. Like I like, it wasn't crazy. And a lot of people.
I can't believe it wasn't crazy because you had to drive through Atlanta, and didn't you also have to drive through Birmingham?
That and Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, 3 of the worst traffic cities in the country.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. Atlanta was my worst spot, but
It,
it was
I don't even know what to tell you about getting through Atlanta. Just
yeah.
don't, I guess.
That
I don't
was my
know.
first time going through on my own, actually. So, but it was crazy. But it was a fun trip there, and obviously it was a late night. But I went ahead and went to the track that night because my producer and my boss were over there, and so I went ahead and met them in person for the first time. And then I had to finish some notes that I'd been working on for the past week and a half. So I went ahead and I sat in the booth. And dude, I am telling you. Like, I'm getting spoiled with this opportunity. Like, there are not a lot of places that are nicer than South Boston in terms of short tracks in America, and that's a big statement. But I have seen a lot of other facilities, and this is not me dogging on any other facilities whatsoever. But I just that they have done a lot of work. Brandon Brown, who's my boss, has and the track GM before him.
Race. Is that any relation to the racing Brandon Brown that used to run Xfinity?
No.
I'm assuming it's not the same guy.
No.
Okay.
Not the same guy. I actually saw a video about that guy today, and I was like, wait a second. But I was like, no, it's not him. But that they have done a lot of work, just continuing to improve South Boston Speedway, and that's another one of the big reasons that I wanted to be there is because, they continually want to improve. And what they wanted to do with their broadcasting and the track in general, it all fit exactly what I wanted from broadcasting itself and being able to do announcing. And so, but I got to see the booth is nice, man. It is nice.
That's good to hear. So how late did you stay at the track making notes the night you got in?
Till 1 a.m.
Was it one of those things you almost were just like, man, I don't want to leave here. I might just sleep in the booth.
No, but my producer stayed up all night. Dude, it was crazy. The track had gotten me a hotel, and so I went back to the hotel because I knew I needed sleep. I was like, this is gonna be my first ever live calling event. I've done over 200 hours on iRacing, but again, live event's different. It's something new. And so,
you have some live event experience, don't you, with
college with basketball and football,
yeah.
But it's not the same. So when I went back to the hotel,
pretty big deal.
Yeah, well, I went back to the hotel, went ahead and got some sleep. I woke up at 6:45, and I was right out of bed, and I went ahead, got a shower, did my hair, read my Bible, which is great. I had time for everything I needed. I went down to the hotel, got a free complimentary breakfast. And then I went out, I know, and I put on my Flow Polo. Dude, looked official as heck. It was awesome. Went ahead and went over to the track, got there about 8 a.m. And from there, our plan for the day was we went down to the track in the pit road. Me and my partner, Kyle Haney, which he is amazing. Oh, my gosh, he's amazing. He's funny. He's good at what he does, and he's really aspiring to help me. There are a lot of people out there that I would believe that would probably say, this guy, he should know, like, or whatever, like, he should know these things. But Kyle understands my background, and he really has been great at starting to help me make the transition on those things that aren't quite the same. And I really couldn't ask for much better. But we went down and we started to get some notes. We started talking to drivers. He introduced me to a lot of drivers, so I met a lot of the drivers throughout all 4 divisions, and we just started getting some insiders for the day and all this stuff. So it was cool. We talked to Peyton Sellers' team. Max Reeves is running with Peyton Sellers this weekend. That's where his car had come from. Who else did we get to talk to? We got to talk to some pure stock guys. We talked to the 2024 champion of the Hornets, which is her name's Jordan Pinnock, and she is good. She is good in that Hornet. I don't know if you know anything about Hornets, but they're front wheel drive. They are an interesting car.
That's like 4-cylinder hatchbacks mostly.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah. That's exactly.
They're called something different everywhere, but I watched a little bit of the highlights that were posted on Instagram by NASCAR Regional. I got to see those.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw my little shout out on
I
our
did. Oh, I did.
media. Whose beautiful voice is that I hear?
That was mine. So, but yeah, so we did that. We got a lot of notes, all that stuff, and then we went ahead and went back up to the booth. Started filling out some more of our notes, some things we learned. We started watching the practices. There was about 2 hours of practice between the 4 divisions, and we started to, we have a guy who helps us out with a lot of our notes. His name is Joe. He's been on the track for a long time, and he does some excellent stuff. But obviously, you're going to have people that show up at the track that you weren't planning on and all that stuff. So we had to go ahead and do some research of our own, find out some stuff. I also figured out that you can do Race Monitor for free on your computer. So I also like a bigger screen, so I brought my laptop and had it running like all day and had Race Monitor up on it, which was really helpful. But we did all that during practice and all that, and then we went live on Facebook for qualifying at 1 o'clock, and we were like, that's just going to get me warmed up. And one of the biggest things for me that was tougher was sponsor reads. We have, again, Brandon Brown has done such a good job. Like, we have a lot of sponsors. We're able to bring in a good bit of money. But
speaking of sponsors,
what?
We need some.
Dude, seriously. Come on, guys. Help us out. We're growing, baby. Please, the B-Man Podcast 2024 at gmail.com, all lowercase, no spaces. Please email us with your inquiries. But it was interesting because, again, I've done some reads for some of the series I broadcast, but it's always been the producer saying, okay, read this read, or do whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, sorry, guys, my nose is totally stopped up. I've been dealing with that this whole weekend, too, which was not fun. I had to have Zyrtec D. I had to have cough drops all day long, but we are good for race day. So, we did that, and it was again, this was another thing where Kyle Haney was great. He just threw me in the deep end. He was like, hey, what if I'm not here? And he was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, okay. And so I pulled out my book. Again, it's all out in front of me, but there's 30 some odd sponsors, and you're like, okay, well, we've got Danville Toyota, which is the race day sponsor, so we got to talk about them a lot. Then we've got our 4 division sponsors. They're obviously important. They're paying a good bit of money, so we might sure want to say them more than once. But then we've got all these others that aren't as big, and we probably want to say at least once during the day. And so I was like, which ones do I do? So him and I kind of came up with something that we're going to work on over the next race or so of just coming up with a little bit more of a strategy isn't the word. Organization for me of saying, okay, this is the title sponsor. We want to mention them about this many times. These are the division sponsors. We want to mention them about this. It was just that there was so much in front of me that had not been explained that I was like, So, but then that's another thing that I got to talk to my boss about later in the day is like, hey, I noticed that this was a weakness of mine that I really want to improve on. And I've already talked to Eric Brennan, who does, obviously he's the lead on the Cars Tour. And I talked to him. We're going to have a meeting next week, him and I. And I'm just going to pick his brain about getting some of his advice on how I can improve on those things. And he's so willing and ready to help, which is another one of the amazing things about Eric Brennan. But anyway, I found that was one of my struggles. But we went ahead and we got into the pre-race. And we don't have a pit road reporter. So each of us serves as the pit road reporter and interviewee. So for this race, they wanted me to do at least one series, one division, and Kyle was going to do the rest. And Kyle obviously did a lot of the pre-race stuff, which I'm going to learn. And when Kyle can't do it, or when they just want to throw me in, I'm going to do it. But that's something I've got to learn. So, but they wanted to throw me in to go ahead and get one in on the first day, and then probably next race in 2 weeks I'll do 2, and Kyle will probably do 3, and then we'll just bounce back and forth, just as you would normally. So I told Kyle, and we talked about this, a lot of us, I'm going to be leaning on him for a little bit, but we're going to get me obviously to the point where we're truly 50-50, which it has been so great. And so we did all that, got into the races, and when we got into the racing is when I felt the most comfortable, because I've called races for a year, 2 years now, 200 hours on iRacing, and so that is really my wheelhouse, and I felt the most comfortable. And it was the most fun I have ever had, Gavin. Like, I've done it a lot on iRacing, but I see it on my screens, and it's right here, but when I got to look at the program monitor, but then look out and the track is right there, one of the coolest things ever. I mean, the experience of a lifetime. And I've known this for so long, but like, this is what I want to do for my life.
Yeah. One, I kind of have a question for you about that
Yeah.
because obviously when you're watching a race on iRacing, the camera angles sometimes can be a little janky when you're sitting there in the booth and get to look out at the entire track and follow everything with your own eyes. Does that make your cadence and what you're saying feel a lot more natural?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say it's probably harder to call a race on iRacing than it is in person.
Probably, honestly. And the interesting thing is I don't know what it is, but I am very good with correlating names with numbers and looking at paint schemes as well. I thought that was going to be a struggle of mine just because there were so many cars. It's 4 different divisions. We probably had about 50 cars there total. No, probably 60 probably 50 between all 4 of our divisions. And so I was like, oh, well, how anyway, because I didn't, you don't have the paint schemes. The only thing I could look at was that morning in the garage. And so, but I was actually surprised. I picked up names and numbers quick. And the great thing is, now throughout the season, a lot of those guys will keep showing up. So they're already in my head. But yeah, getting to see everything right out in front of me was really great. When that call that's on NASCAR Regional, Peyton Sellers was right in front of me, and I saw Jeff Sparks spinning. I was watching it right out in front of my eyes. So yeah, it's definitely easier in that sense that you don't have to click on different parts of the track. It's just right there. So, but yeah, that's where I felt the most comfortable. Then I got to go down and interview the Hornets division, and again, that's another place I felt confident. I've done so many interviews and talking to drivers. It really is, you don't want to ask the same questions. You want to analyze the race and each driver that finished in the top 3 and ask the best questions for how their race went. The winner had dominated the race. He led all 20 laps, but Jordan Pinnock, who finished second, was right behind him all race long. So I was like, were you ever looking back and thinking about, were you going to defend, or was that ever getting in your head? And he said, this is a great quote. He said, dude, I could hear her. And it was like she was right there. And it was great. I asked Jordan, I was like, second place, this is big for you. You're still looking for that first win, but you got the championship last year. What does this finish mean? Because last year, she only had the best ever finish of third. Like, she kept finishing third,
Track champion without a top 2 finish.
She was consistent.
Wow.
She was consistent, dude. And she's gonna get a win, dude. She is talented. In that division. But she actually got really emotional because she was like, we broke that barrier of third place. And so that's another step for us. So it was really cool. Then the third place finisher, he won 5 races last season, but he got DQ'd some, so he didn't quite win the track championship. But I was like, you started 11th and you finished third. Like, talk to me about coming through the field. And then he was supposed to run in our limited race, but his engine blew up. So I was like, what's your future going to look like? So it's just about coming up with those questions that's just tailored to each driver and their race and their background. And I feel confident in that, too, when I get to do that. So then we got to call the late model stock race. It was the Hornets and the pure stocks were definitely fun, and they were great races in themselves. But when the late models got on track, it was different. I mean, they were flying. And it was different. Like, I saw the speed right in front of my eyes. And I've been to a lot of races myself as a spectator. I know the speed. But it was just something about being in the booth and talking about what was happening right in front of me was one of the coolest things. It's just what I want. It's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, but we got done with the day. It was awesome. We celebrated. I got congratulated by my producer. He was like, dude, you killed it today. And again, this is my first go. I did make a lot of mistakes, but I understand what a lot of things I made mistakes on and how I can improve from them, and I want to improve every single race. But my track GM, we talked about those things, but he was like, you did a great job today. And so I felt really well, and all of them told me it was really cool. They were like, you deserve to be here. Like, you've earned this opportunity. Like, they told me, we talked in our production meetings, they were like, speak with that confidence. And I think I really did. Because they looked at my background and they hired me for what they've seen, and I think I think I lived up to it, at least in my first go. And so I was really proud of myself.
That is good to hear, man. I'm super glad you had safe travels, and I'm gonna go ahead and wish for safe travels for you for your next race, because 22 hours round trip is no joke.
It ended up
for
being
anybody.
26.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
well, because the first night I added an hour of stops, and then on Sunday when I started to travel back, I made a pit stop at Bristol, and I got stuck in traffic for 2 hours, and then oh god, dude, that trip back was a rough one. But just because of the pit stop at Bristol, like I had to stop at my sister's in Birmingham and stay with her on Sunday night because I could not make it. I was falling asleep at the wheel, and I was like, I'm gonna crash. I was like, I gotta stop. And so I stopped with my sister and stayed at her place. But the travel back was a little tougher. Again, in future things, it'll be easier because I'll just do it in one go. But we'll talk about my experience at Bristol when we get to NASCAR stuff. But that was really my weekend, and we all celebrated on Saturday, and I can't wait to get back in 2 weeks.
I mean, I don't know what else to add on there other than the fact that I got to have a little bit of fun myself this weekend.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So the World of Outlaws got canceled at Arrowhead. I was planning on going to that. I had an interview set up with Emerson Axum, but I looked at the schedule and was like, they're going to be at I-55. That's even closer than Arrowhead to me, so I'm going to go to it. So the night before,
Which
it was
also, I figured out about I-55. My girlfriend lives an hour away, so I want to go at some point.
They're going to be there again this year.
Then let's go.
Yeah, okay. We'll do it.
I bet. We'll figure out when it is.
Right, yeah, we'll figure out when it is. We'll go.
I bet.
But, so I was looking, and I was like, all right, it's night one. My niece and nephew had their first T-ball game the same night as night one, so I didn't get to go to both nights. So night one, I got home, sat down, watched it on TV. Logan Schuchart was so fast, and Carson Macedo ended up winning late, and I was like, all right, you know what? This is a great race. I'm super excited about it.
Night one was very chaotic in terms of night two.
I mean, night two was chaotic in everything but the feature, it seemed like. But no, let's get into night two.
So, no. I want to hear about your.
No, that's what I'm saying. So night two, my family leaves. We go up there that morning. Me and my parents. I bring my microphones with me, and so I get down into the pits. Once we get there to the race, it's about 4:00, and I'm like, all right, I have 2.5 hours. I'm not gonna be in a hurry. I'm just gonna go visit with people and kind of hang out. So I go, and I'm gonna interview Emerson Axum. So I go to his car, and I sit and talk to one of his crew guys for just a minute, and I hear a pit bike roll up, and I hear him go, "Hey, what's up?" I mean, he's like really, really chill guy. I don't know if you've seen this, but he's like the super laid back. I don't know if you've noticed, but sprint car drivers kind of have their own personality. Yeah. Every form of racing has their own personality signature, I've figured out.
Yeah.
And I've kind of noticed this about sprint car drivers. They're a little more laid back. I'm trying to say this in the nice way because I want to say it in a nice way because I'm saying it as a compliment, but they really have this confidence about them is a way to put it. And they're laid back, borderline cocky, but not in a bad way at all. And so we sat, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk to him for 15, 20 minutes before we do the interview. So we start talking and just kind of chilling, hanging out, talked a lot about Indiana basketball. He's a big college basketball guy. And one thing I noticed is he told me before our interview is he was like, I don't really watch racing. When he's not racing, he doesn't watch it. And it's funny because Timothy's the same way.
Like that. Yes. Timothy is the exact same.
He's like, no, I can't stand to watch a race I'm not in. I just get bored, or I look at it, I'm like, man, I can do better than this. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But then I hear a horn go, the 10-minute horn go off, and I'm like, no way, we've sat and talking for an hour. And I'm like, are y'all about to have to do engine heat? And he goes, yeah, they moved the schedule up an hour. And I'm like, okay, thank goodness I wasn't sitting here an hour wasting my time. So I was like, all right, he was in Group A, and the way they do it at Peevely is inside the track, they have a hot pit area, and since it was such a big show, there were 62 sprint cars there this weekend. And so they sent 31 cars inside the track. They hot lapped, took a 10-minute break, qualified, and then emptied the track and brought in Group B. So while he was in there hot lapping qualifying, I went around and found some other people to talk to. I talked to Rico for just a minute. He had to go do some other stuff. I think he had to make an appearance at his merchandise trailer. But I got to talk to him for just a quick minute. And anytime you get to talk to Rico Abreu, he is, in my opinion, he's the only dirt driver right now that is bigger than the series he races in.
Really?
I mean, NASCAR, you have a few people that are, that transcend the sport in popularity, especially like right now. I would say Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace all transcend NASCAR.
Yeah.
Dirt late models don't have anybody right now. They had Scott Bloomquist for such a long time. So unfortunate about his passing last year. But
Yeah.
Rico is really Dirt's only guy left that transcends dirt racing. So anytime you get to talk to him, he's super cool, super personable.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
I ended up meeting another cool guy. I think I told you a little bit about him.
Yeah.
So I go up, and Sammy Swindell, old school dirt racer, he's 70 years old, actually. I mean, he's the same age as my grandparents, and he still races 15, 20 times a year. I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Dude,
I'm going to try to talk to him.
so you're telling me I've got time?
Yeah, you have more time than you can imagine.
I want to race dirt just for fun.
Yeah, but so I go to try to talk to him, and he's talking to a few of his team guys. So I go talk to, I think he's his tire guy at this point. So I go up and just start talking to him, and we start chatting, and it turns out we know a few of the same people. And I'm like, all right, what's your name? He goes, well, my name's Flea Ruzick. And it turns out he actually is a old midget chassis builder and an old midget racer, and his dad raced midgets for a long time too. But we got to talking about a mutual person that we both know is Justin Allgaier. And he actually built a chassis that Justin Allgaier ran in the Chili Bowl back in 2021. And that's the last race car that he built, Justin Allgaier raced. And so I thought that was really cool. And now he works part-time. He helps out with Sammy Swindell's team, who's a part-time racer. And, it just kind of works out when you want to be a part-time car builder. You find a part-time racer, and you kind of have one car that you take care of throughout the year. And instead of racing 60, 70, 80 times, like most of these dirt guys, both of you are at the point in your life, in your career now, 15, 20 races a year, and you're happy.
Yeah, seriously.
But I mean, I talked, this guy is, Kenny Wallace was the second most entertaining person I talked to this weekend, if that tells you the kind of personality this guy's got.
You talked to Kenny Wallace?
Yeah, I knew he was, there was a modified race there. Kenny Wallace, Ken Schrader were both there. Did get to talk to Schrader. I talked to Kenny Wallace for just a few minutes. Kenny Wallace is awesome. He's one of the coolest guys ever.
Bro.
But yeah, no, this was such a fun race weekend.
Dude.
No, so Kenny Wallace knows about the B-Main.
Bro, do you know what one of my goals is for us?
What?
I want our show to be on Dirty Mo.
That's kind of been my goal as well. So I feel like we can make it happen.
Dude, I think so too.
I mean, we know the right people. We'll work on it. Trust me. But no, so
the fans that are watching, we're going up slowly but surely.
We're going up, but so I had to talk to Flea was his name, by the way. I mean, how cool of a name is Flea?
No, it's dope.
I mean, I don't know if that's his real name. I doubt it is, but I mean, he goes by Flea. That's awesome. So after that conversation, it was super cool. I might have an in at the Chili Bowl. I might have us an in at the Chili Bowl. So that's a big deal.
Like to what? Go there?
Yeah, to go to the Chili Bowl. I might have an in. So yeah,
let's go.
I'm super excited. I know. I'm super excited. This is a great week. This is a great weekend for the B-Main, by the way.
Yes.
So Kenny Wallace knows about the B-Main, so that's super exciting.
But he does? You told him about it?
Yeah, I told Kenny about it. I think.
What did he say?
He said he's going to check it out, and I got to interview him, I guess, 2 years ago at a local dirt track.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got to talk to him just for less than 5 minutes, and we actually didn't really talk about racing that much. I asked him what he'd been doing to enjoy the off season. He told me about a trip he went on a 9-day trip to Europe, and he went to like 8 countries in 9 days. And that's what we ended up talking about was his trip to Europe. And it's so fun to talk to racers about things that aren't racing.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
But then when I went back over to talk to Emerson Axum and do our interview, it was so cool. He's such a chill and relaxed guy.
Did you talk to him about maybe coming on at some point?
Yes, I think I might have 2 options scheduled for when he can come on.
Okay.
I'll discuss those with you later.
Gotcha.
But yeah. But no, so one thing we talked about is how good me and you and Timothy have had this conversation. How good this current generation of drivers is,
dude.
Especially from the ages of, let's say, 17 to 23, 24 years old.
Yeah.
And Emerson got to tell me about racing, when he started racing asphalt midgets and quarter midgets and go-karts, racing with Carson Hocevar and racing with Jake Garcia and some of those NASCAR guys. And then when he started racing dirt, Dason Persley, who's another great dirt racer, and he kept talking about racing with Cannon McIntosh and Buddy Kofoid and all these great drivers that are all so young. I mean, how absolutely stacked it is. And one thing I'm surprised, I asked him if there was one thing that he said thought made this group better, and really all he said was, "We're starting younger," and that's all he said.
Yeah.
And I was kind of expecting him to say something along the lines of, "We have more guys' experience to talk to us. We have more time on the sim," and his answer made so much sense. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's obvious." He's like, "No, we're just starting younger."
Well, and think about it with Keelan Harvick, Tristan McKee. Like we
Yeah,
talk about how impressive it is,
14.
but it's because they started so young. So anyway, back to you.
Yeah, Keelan Harvick and Tristan McKee at 14 years old, like we said, have as much of experience as, I don't know, let's say,
Probably Joey Logano did when he was 16.
Yeah, or let's see, even you can take it even one step further. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had when he was 21.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at guys that are at their career when they're 10, 12, 13, 14 years old, and they're 5 years ahead of what people were just 10, 15 years ago. So,
yeah.
And Emerson told me one thing. I think the age limit to run a 410 sprint is 14 for most series. He said, don't be surprised if in the next 2 years you see the age to run a 410 sprint in the World of Outlaws or high limits get lowered to 12 years old.
Jeez.
And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but that's one.
Dude, I don't even know how I feel about it being 14, bro. 410s are dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, 410s are nuts. But
Dude,
no, it was such a fun.
Like I would love to drive one just to drive one. I'd probably drive a what is it? What's below a 360?
A 305.
Yeah, a 305 because I think a 410 would be too much for me. But dude, like, oh my gosh, like 410s are crazy.
And on a track with as high banking and as many grooves as I-55, I've been talking for I don't know how long. I haven't even talked about the racing yet. So after I got to talk to a handful of guys, and here's one other cool thing. One of the sponsors, it's a sponsor for one of the associate sponsors for Bill Baylog. That's a World Outlaws full-time guy. Is
okay. Oh yeah. I know that name.
One of his associate sponsors.
He won,
is
right? At one point this year?
Yeah, he's won. He has a win this year.
Okay,
but one of his associate sponsors is Zerbal Concrete. My mother's maiden name is Zerbal, and that concrete company is from the same town that my 2 times great-grandfather is from, and he had 17 siblings. So I'm definitely related distantly to a World of Outlaws sponsor. So that's pretty cool.
You should get in contact. You should get. I
know. I'm going to get in contact with them.
For you, for us, and for me.
Yeah, I know. So I'm gonna have to get in contact with them soon. Be like, hey, I know we have a different last name, but we're definitely at least third cousins. and they like racing. So, but that was one cool thing. And then we go sit down. I-55 it's an old school track. All the bleachers are wooden bleachers that are just brought in, built up. It's not built into anything. So there's no traditional ADA seating. It's just kind of an area between each group of grandstands. So I was like, I sit on the front stretch at the start, and I don't have a whole lot of neck control, so I can't turn my head very far. So I was like, all right, I can't see anything right here. So I go set kind of at the middle, not really the middle of 3 and 4, but the middle of 4. So the start of the exit of the corner, which I don't know how many tracks you've been to, but at most tracks, turn 1 and turn 4 are really the best places to sit if you want to be able to see the whole track.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, these are great seats. And they come out for the first heat race, and I get peppered with mud. And I'm like, okay, I can tolerate this. But the first heat race, great heat race. Second heat race, also another great one. But you get to the 4th heat race. This might be the best heat race I've ever watched in any dirt series. Carson Macedo and Tanner Thorson in a 10-lap heat race had 7 lead changes. They swapped the lead just almost every lap. Carson Macedo would throw a slider, and he would hold the top. Thorson would throw a slider, come up to the top, go back down to the bottom, and keep kind of throwing. In the dirt world, they call it sliding themselves. You know, they're not throwing a slide job on somebody, but they are throwing a slider. So he kept sliding himself to cut off Macedo's momentum. And Macedo kind of got that figured out soon. So at the apex of the corner, he would give it a little extra bake and drive off super early and get the inside line. and then Thorson would just come back down and throw another slider. I mean, it's some of the best racing I've ever seen. I don't know how they didn't wad both of those cars up and put them in the bleachers.
Dude.
It was an insane
That's
race.
so awesome.
And when they had 62 cars, their format was so many cars that they had a D main.
That's crazy.
And so the D main, not a great race. It was some cars that had trouble in qualifying, just absolutely dominated, that I think made it all the way up to the B. And then in the C main, you had Landon Crawley, who's another guy that I got to talk to a little bit at the track. He's from Arkansas, so I'm kind of a fan of him. He's super young, 17 years old. Him and then Emerson Axum, who I interviewed, both were in the C main, both had issues in their heat race. They drive from the back and end up, or not the back, the middle of the pack in the C main and finish 1-2 by a wide margin. And the B main, I think, was, like our namesake, the best race of the night. Ryan Timms, another young driver, 16 years old. I mean, you remember him from the Chili Bowl. Super talented guy. He drove from the back of the B main and ended up putting it into the A main and drove up to, I think, 9th or 10th in the A main. I mean, he was on fire all night. He put that right rear on the high side, and he was faster than everybody in the B main by, it wasn't even close.
Dude, it was
so
crazy.
The A main comes around.
It was crazy. And I know this happens in a lot of tracks, but I think I just noticed it most at I-55, the amount of dirt cake on the wall.
You should have seen the amount of dirt cake on me.
Oh, I've seen the picture.
I don't know. You didn't see the picture of our hotel room after, so we get back to our hotel.
You need to post that photo on our social.
Yeah, I'll have to.
So
I mean,
funny.
it is a great...
Dude, also that
great picture.
That meme that Chris
good friend,
made, bro.
Our good friend Chris James made one of the best memes ever. I don't know if you've seen the meme of the shell-shocked soldier wearing his helmet and his eyes are huge, and it's kind of become a meme in racing where there's a picture of Shane Van Gisbergen wearing that helmet. And so us being race fans, we're very familiar with that meme.
I'm looking at it right now.
My face with me, and I mean, it looks... is there a way you can put this picture up where everybody can see it?
Wait,
or are we just going to have to share it on our socials?
I can put it in there. I'll put it up.
You got to put it up for everybody to see because this is great. Because I want to see it too. I mean, it is awesome.
It's so funny.
I'm going to have to go look at Discord real quick just to look at it again.
No, dude, it's actually genuinely hilarious. It's just a face you are making the face.
I am making the face. I mean, it is perfect.
Who took that photo?
My mom took the photo.
Why were you?
I was making the face because it was 12:30 and we were in our hotel room, and I was just like, man, I'm so tired. I'm ready to go to bed. And I was just like, oh, been a long day at the race. But I mean, it is the perfect picture.
Golly.
But no, so they worked the track before the B main. The B main was great, and a lot of sprint car fans kind of give modifieds this bad rap. Oh, the modifieds come in and tear up our track. Well, I'm not going to hate on modifieds too much because, I mean, there are great modified drivers out there. And I-55 probably has the best local program of any modified track in the country. When Kenny Wallace and Kenny Schrader, both great NASCAR drivers, are in your weekly program this year, you know you're a good racetrack.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm not going to harp on them too much, but the modifieds did kind of get the track a little choppy just by the way they race.
What is that like? Do you mean they created divots or grooves?
Yeah, they created a little bit more grooves than a sprint car because a sprint car has, the really wide rear tires, and a modified drives a lot more on the right front, and their tires aren't as big, so they create a little more grooves. So, after the modified heat races, they go and they rework the track. And then the B main was great. The A main was great for about 10 laps.
Yeah.
And I started noticing even at the start of the race, the bottom was very dominant, but the top and the middle were still working. I mean, Logan Schuchart, who started on the pole, was kind of driving away, running the middle, and then you had Carson Macedo trying to run him down on the top. You had Rico, who was in third and fourth, battling with Donnie Schatz, moving around the whole track. But you see Donnie Schatz and the few cars behind him really, really catfishing the bottom. I mean, their left front was all but touching the inside wall. And I started to notice that, and I'm like, man, that bottom started to look a little bit darker than the rest of the track. And then it just seemed like a switch was flipped. You go from maybe lap 13 or 14, where there are 5 viable lines on the track. In 3 laps, all 25 cars hugging the bottom.
Yeah.
It looked like Martinsville.
Yeah, I saw it on the highlights.
And I was like, man, I hate it that it was such a perfect day of racing. 4 great heat races, 2 good races for non-qualifiers, a great D main, great C main, great. I mean, 8 amazing races before the A main, and then the A main to be the stinker of the entire weekend. It just puts a bad taste in a race fan's mouth when the feature of when the finale of the whole weekend is the worst race.
Yeah.
And it's still a great race. I mean, being in a World Outlaws show is awesome no matter what.
Yeah, well, and that's I didn't have when I went to Magnolia, like the middle to high line was the only line you could run. Guys tried down low, but it wasn't even that it was that slicked up. It was just like that was pretty much the fastest line all night. And so I can kind of understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but when the bottom got gripped up, there was one driver. I think it was Ryan Timms, tried to make a little bit of hay on the outside, and he could pass. He passed a few cars on the outside. They were kind of in the middle of the back of the pack, but even he had to get stuck down on the bottom because he couldn't make up any room once you got up to the really, really fast cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, Logan Schuchart led flag to flag. He should have won both nights. I mean, I hate it for him that he didn't get to win night 1, but I mean, hats off to Carson Macedo for outdueling him there at the end. But no, it was just a great race. Oh, it was Tanner Thorson and Austin McCarl were the 2 drivers trying to make the high side work, but they just couldn't get drive off late. Once the track was slicked up and the bottom was where the grip was, there was so much slick in turn 4 and turn 2, they couldn't get the power down like they could off the cushion and through the grip early on in the race.
Yeah.
But no, that was my weekend at the World Outlaws show at I-55, so we both had awesome weekends.
Dude.
Timothy, I know you're not here with us this weekend. I'm so sorry that you didn't get to be at a racetrack this weekend.
Yeah.
I hate it for him.
Dude, I
but
know.
No.
Well, that's so weird. But you and I at the racetrack and him not. That's roles reversed.
Our driver on the show was the one that wasn't at the racetrack. But no, there was a little bit more action going on in the dirt world. Like I said at the very start of the show, Ricky Thornton Jr., is there anything this man can't do?
Dude, I don't even know.
I mean, he is awesome. I don't know if you got to watch any of the highlights from the Silver Crown race.
I did. Dude,
yeah,
first of all, I don't know what it is. Like,
Silver Crowns are a very unique series.
Well, but they're sprint cars, right?
Yes, but no.
What's the difference?
Okay, so a Silver Crown has a lot longer of a wheelbase.
That's what I thought. Okay, when I watched it, I was like, these look really long.
So Silver Crown.
So that wasn't my head being like,
No, they actually race on asphalt and dirt, both.
Yeah.
They're pretty much a 50-50 series.
I don't understand how. I saw for the. I've never seen.
Their chassis are slightly. They have a. It's the same length wheelbase and the same motor for dirt and asphalt, but they obviously run a.
Like, in the asphalt, does the rear still yaw, or did they like I know?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying like
not as
yaw,
much, but
that's what I thought. So like,
there's still a little bit of stagger there.
Okay, because I saw, obviously with any late model race, they yaw out by like a foot just of the natural sway and with the asphalt and the pavement and the way the car is built. But I'd imagine
it's not as much on asphalt, but it is still there.
Okay, but not enough to smoke the tires, right?
No.
Okay.
No, they're gripped up on an asphalt track.
Okay.
Silver Crowns, this is.
I kind of want to watch that. That sounds fun.
I know I'm about to mess up my 1960s racing lore here. So the USAC Silver Crown Series is the top series of, quote-unquote, top series of USAC. The USAC Sprints are a little bit more competitive. They have higher car counts. But the Silver Crowns are their traditional top series. They used to be a little bit different. They used to be the cars that are the Silver Crown cars on iRacing right now.
Yeah.
A little bit more horsepower. They ran at 1.5 and 2 mile tracks, even running Indianapolis. But back in the 1950s, the entire decade of the 50s, the Indy 500 counted for USAC Silver Crown points, IndyCar points, and F1 points.
That's crazy.
This was the entire decade so this was 70, 80 years ago. But that's just my cool little piece of information about Silver Crowns. But now they run on asphalt tracks under 1.25 miles in length. They go to Gateway. They go to Toledo. They go to where else? They go to a few other tracks with the Gateway and Toledo. They go to. I am blanking on the name of that track. It is a super high bank track. I want to say Hickory, but I know it's not Hickory because Hickory's a half-mile track in North Carolina. Oh, what is the
I
name?
wouldn't know.
Anyway, it's a super high bank track up in Indiana that they go to. It has higher banking than Bristol. And it is a rough track surface.
Oh my
But no, they go to these great tracks, and they also go to half mile and the 2 1-mile dirt tracks left in the country at DuQuoin and also at the Illinois State Fairgrounds. So it's such a unique series, and I think it's one of the more underrated series in racing. I know I've said that.
No, I thought
I've said
that was
about
cool.
cars. I've said that the Pro Late models are the most underrated car in racing. I've said the Silver Crown's the most underrated car. I've said Super Late. I've said everything's the most underrated car. Yeah, I just love racing.
Really?
Yeah, no kidding. Who would have thought? But it's such a unique series. And Ricky Thornton Jr. being able to hop in a car that is such a momentum-based car because it's a heavier car than a sprint car. It's a longer wheelbase. They have a 75-gallon tank. And they run a 360 motor instead of a 410 motor. So they run about 150 less horsepower. So you can't really throw a traditional slide job on dirt like you could in a wingless sprint. But you kind of have to. It's almost like watching a street stock race on a dirt street stock race.
I was going to say, like, I saw them doing a little, but it was just like, it was so slow.
It almost reminds me of when NASCAR would go to Eldora, Knoxville, and the dirt on Bristol is a good comparison to. And their asphalt races are such an old school race.
Dude, I wish the truck series would go back to dirt.
Okay, I was about to have that rant. I was kind of going to build that into this.
Dude, I literally just thought of that.
Because Bristol was a stinker this week.
Well, we'll get to that.
Especially, that's kind of where I'm wanting to go. Bring back the dirt, at least for the truck series. You've heard me talk so much about these dirt drivers. Like I'm about to talk about Ricky Thornton Jr. Remember when Bobby Pierce got in a truck and was so fast? Or when Logan Seavey got in a truck and was so fast? Buddy Kofoid was fast in a truck. Tanner Thorson was fast enough in a truck.
I didn't even that. I think
a few asphalt races.
I think the last years that they did that was right when I was getting in a NASCAR because I remember seeing it, but I don't think I ever watched it. Which now I'm literally might after the show go back and watch a race.
Yeah, I mean it was just so cool, and there's so many dirt drivers now that I think would be super marketable. Can you imagine? Like, let's just imagine it right now. We've talked about her a little bit on the show. Jay Davidizian making her NASCAR debut in a truck on dirt. Dude, how cool would that be?
That'd be crazy.
Like, you got to think of the storylines that the trucks on dirt would generate.
Dude.
Bringing in all these young dirt racers and giving them a shot to go against the best. Dude. Jonathan Davenport got to make a Cup Series start. Think about putting a head-to-head. Think of David Gravel is your best wing sprint driver right now. Then put Logan Seavey, your best non-wing sprint driver, and put Ricky Thornton Jr. and Bobby Pierce, your best late model drivers, all in the same race, racing against NASCAR's best.
Dude.
I mean, you got to think of the storylines that's going to generate.
It'd be so cool.
So if anybody at NASCAR is watching this, I'm begging you to bring the dirt back. But so the USAC Silver Crown race was great. Ricky Thornton Jr. ran in the top 10 the whole race until 3 to go, blew a tire. I hate that for him.
Yeah.
But is there anything he can't do?
He was impressing. He really was.
Is there anything that guy can't do? I mean,
no.
Just in the year since I've turned you into a dirt fan, you've seen him race so many different kinds of cars. He's one of those. He's a great driver no matter what you put him in.
He really is.
And with him being able to run top 10 his first Silver Crown race, would you put him in the same category as... I know he doesn't race NASCAR. Would you put him in that category with Kyle Larson right now of just the top drivers, period?
I think he's up there.
In America. But let's put him in America.
But I think that, I don't know, I just think Larson has gone across so many more disciplines.
Yeah. And it's just because he races more.
Of all the people that bounce around, I would definitely put him up there because I can't think of many names that really do bounce around. So I'd put C. Bell somewhere on that list, a little bit lower, but I would say that Ricky Thornton Jr. I would love to see him on asphalt.
I would love to see him on asphalt.
Because
Even in a one-off.
if I think I could see him on asphalt and he would compete well, then yes, I would put him near Larson.
I have a crazy idea, and this is just an idea that I'm going to pitch because I doubt either of them are going to see this episode. I hope they're seeing this episode, and I want them to see this episode, and I hope this clip gets out to them. Brendan Queen has an asphalt late model, and he has a dirt late model. He's a great asphalt late model driver, maybe the best right now. Brendan Queen, Ricky Thornton Jr., ride swap.
Ooh, that would be so cool.
I think that would be awesome.
Dude, that would be dope. I think I've seen Brendan, like, I know he has his dirt late model. I've never watched a race that he did it in, but, like, I know he's good. But, like, dude, that'd be so sick.
And I feel like they're the two perfect drivers to do a ride swap.
Yeah.
I just think it would be awesome. But no, and then the USAC sprints finally back in action after. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention that Logan Seavey's the one that won the Silver Crown race. Logan Seavey back on top, hasn't won in a while.
Him and Pursley made like two huge mistakes.
Pursley, I feel so bad for Jason Pursley. He had a win in the bag.
He was leading by a mile.
In this season, I thought this race was going to be his breakthrough of the year, where he gets back in a non-winged car, and he's back in his wheelhouse, and maybe gets a little bit of momentum before he goes back full-time in the High Limit Series. And in the lead, the cushion just reaches out and grabs him.
Well, there was like a mound right there. It was a little mound.
And it was getting a lot of guys. But no, it broke my heart for him a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
I hate being in a position where technically we're loosely related. You're officially media now, but we're not supposed to pick favorites. We're not supposed to be.
Oh, I'm not. I mean, what as a media? I'm really not supposed to pick favorites.
Yeah, I'm not either. But when you see something like that, you can't help but to root for him. I mean, he's winning. He's had such a hard start to the year after getting second in the Chili Bowl, and I still think he might have had the Chili Bowl taken from him. But I was like, man, he needs this win so bad, and it just got ripped away from him.
Yeah.
And then the USAC sprints, Kyle Cummins won at Lincoln Park, and then Justin Grant wins at Lawrenceburg, which I don't know if you have to watch the highlights at Lawrenceburg. It is the most underrated dirt. I've said so many things are underrated this episode. I gotta chill. It's such a cool track. It's a 0.4 of a mile track, I think. It is super, super high banked, super, super fast. I don't think they run winged 410s there, but the non-winged 410s are running so fast there. They're borderline almost wide open.
That's
crazy. Is so fun to watch them. He had a great duel. Justin Grant had a great duel with Chase Stockton through the early laps. Finally got out ahead and won. And the last thing that I want to talk about in our dirt coverage, last little tidbit I want to say, Brandon Sheppard and Hudson O'Neal both got back to victory lane. I've been saying all year that they are both due to win. And Brandon Sheppard did it in a huge fashion up in Illinois at the Illini 100, which is a huge race, 2-night event. And I'm so glad Brandon Sheppard won. That's huge for Rocket One. It's their first win since the Topless 100 last year. Back-to-back 100, back-to-back wins for them coming in 100-lap races. I mean, what better way to get 2 wins than going out and winning some of the biggest races?
Yeah. Well, and Hudson O'Neal, he's been struggling. He struggled at the start of the year, and then they made that crew chief change, and they were still.
The speed has been there, but there's just been little mistakes or bad luck. And do you think this is a breakthrough, or is this just because he was running at a race that Ricky Thornton Jr., Bobby Pierce, Brandon Sheppard were all not at? I mean, Jonathan Davenport and Brandon Overton were really the only other elite drivers.
I think that helped, but I think the win's going to give him confidence. So I think it has momentum potential. I think it has potential, but it will give him confidence to where it's definitely going to give him a little bit of a swing. And the question is, can he hopefully avoid mistakes from others or anything out of his control to continue to roll that?
Yeah, but I think that is really the last things I want to talk about in dirt, now we're getting into, in my opinion, I think it's yours, our two favorite short segments of the week. Bonehead move of the week and the badass move of the week. I want to start out with my bonehead move of the week.
Go ahead.
EJ DeCarry, I know he's a young driver, missing a shift on a key restart. And this is a bonehead move. This isn't to say you're a bonehead. It's just saying you were a bonehead in the moment. Missed a key shift from second place and sent home almost a dozen cars in the Cars to a Pro Late model race. Such an expensive wreck. And I hate it for TJ, but I mean, I hate it even more for the cars he took with him.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but what do you really think about that specific incident?
I mean, we talked about it. The shifters can be tough, but I think it's one of those things. Like, obviously, he didn't do it on purpose, but it's a thing that happened, and it just sucks that the incident happened the way it did. It took out a lot of good cars, and again, we talk about it at a lot of the levels of racing that you and I cover. There's a decent margin that don't have the money to repair that, or at least repair it in a decent, like, they're not going to show up to the next race because of some of that. When I was at South Boston this week, there's a driver that should have won the championship last year that skipped the last race to go watch his daughter play softball. I mean, if he had showed up, he had the championship on lock. But he was practicing this year, and he blew an engine. And he probably won't race the whole season because of that. And there's a lot of people out there like that. And so it just stinks. This is not, we're not trying to say, oh, TJ DeCare, like, you did this, like, whatever, like, oh my gosh, like, mistakes happen. Like, you're a young driver, but it just stinks that it went the way it did.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why I wanted to highlight it as kind of a bad move, is because I think he's a good enough driver. He's not going to make that same mistake twice.
No.
Good drivers don't make the same mistake twice.
Like me,
they might make mistakes, but
me at Texas in Hypershift.
Hey, it happens, man. But no. So, what's your bonehead of the week,
dude? Okay, I've been building this one up. So it was from South Boston this weekend, bruh. So we had our second annual Kenny Meadows Memorial Race, which is it's a limited sportsman race, which they're really limited late models, but South Boston has always called them sportsmen. It's really a tradition.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And so, midway through the race, there's a guy named Jason Pittman who has ran there for quite a while. He was running around another driver, what was his name? Zach Paragoy. And Paragoy had gotten involved in an incident. They had fixed his car. He was good. And he had been making his way back up through the field. He sent it. So, South Boston, they've got the wall, the flat apron, and then the banking. A lot of drivers.
Yeah, so the inside wall is what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of guys will they'll enter on the bottom of the banking, or they'll get to the apron and transition back up towards the banking.
Yeah. Use the apron to get a little extra turn.
Yeah. And so Paragoy sent it down on the apron, but he started drifting up, and Jason Pittman was there, and he turned Jason Pittman, and Pittman backed it into the wall, and he got some significant damage on his left rear quarter. And so they spent a while fixing that. He was like 9 laps down. I think Paragoy was only like 2 laps down. But right near the end of the race, the leader was cruising. I mean, Nathan Cruz, the cruise missile, as they call him. He was dominating. And but Jason Pittman, obviously, still 9 laps down. Paragoy 2 laps down. He was about on track 2 seconds ahead of Paragoy. Over the last lap and a half, he started slowing down.
Everybody at the track knew what was about to happen.
At turn 4, spun Paragoy. And so that was like, that they were mad. And so Paragoy goes back into the pits, but Pittman is driving back through the pits, and they're pitted pretty close together. And Pittman is driving by, and one of the crew members from Paragoy's team has this like wooden pallet box and throws it at the windshield of Pittman's car.
That's assault.
Oh no. This is assault. Then
Oh
Pittman
no.
slams on the brakes, gets out of the car, and
Leaving it on pit road, just sitting there.
yes,
Is
gets
the
out
race
of the
still
car.
going? Like, is the
No, the race is over.
okay?
Gets out of the car, and he's going up to Paraguay's team. Paraguay's team is rallying. One of Paraguay's guys has a jack handle in his hand. And so Pittman, one of his crew members, and Paraguay's team it's a brawl. And this guy from Paraguay's team with the jack handle whacks Pittman in the head. Yeah. And Pittman was bleeding. Anyway,
Wow.
the fight gets broken up. It was a bad fight. Like, it was bad. Like, I'm all about drivers fist fighting. Like,
I'm
get
assuming
after it,
that
or teams or
security
whatever.
I'm
But
sure security was there to break it up.
no.
Oh,
But like people broke it
that's
up. People broke it up.
yeah.
But like it was one of those things, like, it was bad. And we got a handle on it. You know, our track GM did a really good job about getting they did a lot of things handled today.
Mhm.
I'm all about drivers fighting, but you can't have things in your hands. Like, but it was crazy. And I was on the broadcast talking about it while it was happening.
What a way to start your career.
I know. Timothy texted me because he was watching the whole thing live. He was like, "Dude, you're doing a great job. Like, all this." And he texted me like after, and he said, "Dude, you had your first race today and your first fight."
So you felt like Pat McAfee broadcasting a wrestling event.
It was crazy. It was wild. But anyway, that
Wow.
was mine. So
Well, ready for the badass move of the week? I'm going to let you kick us off one because I'm sitting here looking at the notes and it's somebody we've mentioned every episode but one.
and he's back to it. Connor Jones qualifies P26 in late model stock race for the Cars Tour, finishes 5th, gains 21 spots, and really impressive. Again, I have appreciated his change of mentality. I think he was a little more aggressive than we've seen in terms of this year in this race, but I don't think he was too aggressive. He never caused any moments. He never got into it with anybody, but he did what he needed to do and finished P5. And I think that's a result that he deserved.
And I think that's why he finished P5 is because, like I had kind of mentioned, he had toned himself back so much that he wasn't fast. And now he has put himself in the position where instead of not being aggressive, he's still being
aggressive but smart.
But he's being smarter. And there was one moment where I saw him send it in. I think it was a 3-wide situation, or it was a pass where he used a lap car as a pick, or there was 3 cars in a space meant for 2, and he went in and got a position out of it. I was like, what a pass that was, and what a way to really show, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And kind of a rebound of momentum. And I was like, I like that move out of him. I like seeing a driver that's passionate like Connor Jones, but making good decisions.
Yeah, I agree. So that was mine, and I think it was a result that they definitely deserved.
Well, my badass move of the week, I'm going to give it to you, Scott Shive, for making your broadcasting debut there at South Boston and handling that fight so well, apparently.
Yeah, thank you. It really is a dream opportunity, and I can't give enough thanks to the Lord, who has lined it up for me first and foremost, and the support of you guys. You know, I got so many texts from friends and from family, and you know, my dad bought a FloRacing subscription, and
Nice.
and that was a good chunk of money. But he was like, you know, we're gonna watch everything, and my girlfriend's supporting me hugely. You know, it's. I have put in a lot of work behind the scenes. I've missed a lot of things with friends. Like there's a lot of times where my friends will text me, and I'm usually busy with something, and I know that it all pays off. And to be able to have this opportunity that, again, like to already be on FloRacing, like it's huge, and I couldn't be more thankful.
I mean, that is the best graceful way to put that. And I'm just going to go ahead. I appreciate you so much when you go on here and thank the Lord. Like, that's one of my favorite things to see
Well,
you do. And that's something I don't do enough.
I talked about, so I met a lot of people at the track this weekend, and A lot of people were surprised that I was traveling so far, and I was like, when you get an opportunity in front of you like this, where you can be in a place where there are such good people, people who want to support you, want you to grow, want you to help grow the track, and then also be on FloRacing, like that is an opportunity that you cannot pass up. And I've said that I've 100% believe that through my prayers that the Lord put this in front of me, and that through it I want to give all my glory to Him. Whether that be the people I talk to at the racetrack, whatever, however it may be, we as disciples of Christ, we are our big key goal is to share His message, to share the love of Jesus Christ with others, and He gives each of us each specific gifts and talents to go out and do that. He's given me an ability to call races and be at the track, and through that, I want to glorify Him.
And another, while we're thanking people, I want to give a quick shout out to another person the show wouldn't be possible without, and somebody who's a good friend to both of us, Presley Witt.
Dude.
I mean, he came to me and was like, dude, I got a friend that he loves racing as much as you do. Y'all need to meet. Y'all need to be friends. I'm like, okay, sure. And then, like, Presley didn't have to do that. He is a great dude. He didn't have to be like, he could have just knew that you liked racing and never even mentioned that I liked racing.
Yeah.
So it's just so cool that we both have a mutual friend that this podcast wouldn't be a thing without.
Yeah, no, it's definitely so cool. The way, there's just so many things. Like, there's so many things that I will go back.
You were talking about God opportunities. Like, that is because of one of my high school friends. Really, is like,
literally,
that's a God opportunity.
And here's the thing. Like, I think about it. Like, we don't get a massive amount of views at this point in our podcast, but I believe, you and me do this for fun. I love getting to do this every 2 weeks. Just sit down and talk racing. It's what we love. But I do believe we gonna go somewhere.
I think so.
So,
but yeah, let's get into the
last quick shoot of NASCAR and
quick shoot throwback week. Well,
there was a lot of debate about throwback weekend.
I just keep throwback week. If you don't like throwback week, you don't like fun. But no, Justin Allgaier won the Xfinity race. Won the Xfinity race. No, he didn't.
Brandon Jones.
I'm looking at this wrong. Brandon Jones.
It's a 98 winless streak.
Yeah. Brandon Jones, huge shout out to him. I mean, he's a driver.
He proved a lot of haters wrong.
I had him written off as his career's got to be coming to an end because he's just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's been so fast this year compared to what he's been for the last 3.
He didn't get a win this year, I'd agreed with you. But I just think he just worked well with Joe Gibbs. I think he only left because of Ty Gibbs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so.
But no, he came back.
They've probably mended by now.
Finished inside of Sawalich did bad again at throwback week.
Sawalich, which we'll get into Bristol, but in the past 5 races, he has finished 24th or worse. He finished 35th at Darlington.
In the 18 car.
Yeah. There's just I don't know what's amiss. Look, Timothy has talked about it, and I think Sawalich is a good driver. But this is a point where I question, should he have started in the Truck Series?
I just don't think he was ready to move up.
I agree.
He was ready to move up from ARCA. I mean,
it could be a thing that it might be something with his crew chief. It could be something with that team itself, with just the 18 team. We have no idea. But look, you saw the move from Jesse Love to go up to Xfinity, and it worked.
They got to change something soon.
Yeah, I was going to say, you saw the move from Xfinity to Jesse Love, and it worked. But I think that's rare.
Even Sammy Smith has a win.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Sammy Smith hasn't been great, but he's been solid.
Yeah, but again, I'll say I don't think that move works as often. I think it's very rare that you see a driver go from ARCA to Xfinity and have good success. And so this is where I question why they didn't give him a year in the trucks.
I mean, outside of Joey Logano, who was 17 years ago when he did it, and this year Connor Zilich is fast. Who went from ARCA to and Jesse Love. Outside of the 3 of them, who went from ARCA straight to Xfinity and be good.
Not many.
Exactly. Like, it's not a move that should be happening, and I don't like seeing it happen more and more right now.
No.
But
Because
on to
again,
Bristol, you had a fun Sunday.
dude, so yeah, I left from South Boston at about 9 in the morning, drove to Bristol, got there about 2 o'clock, parked, walked to the track. I was wearing my Jeff Gordon sweatshirt and my Earnhardt shirt.
Beautiful weather is what I heard. I
Dude,
heard it was
it was a little hot because it was sunny, but like it was good. My face got a little burnt. I wasn't prepared for the sun, but yeah, I got to
no sunburn like a racetrack sunburn.
dude, literally. But I'd been there before, so I knew where I was at. And I actually got decent seats. Here's the thing. The spring race, not as big of an attendance as the fall race. So I was planning on just going and sitting wherever. But I was in the Darrell Waltrip section. I was in turn 4, like right at the very last section before the whole front straight grandstands. But I actually liked my seat because I could see. The only thing I really couldn't see was right at the middle of turn 4 because of the banking. But I could see turn 3 great, turn 2, and turn 1, and the start-finish line. And I was like, I actually love this seat. Plus, where in that section I was at, it was the family section. And there wasn't like a row right in front of you. There was this railing. And so you could kick your feet up. Like, dude, I was chilling. And so I was like, okay. And so I just hung out there.
Too bad the race was the Kyle Larson show.
I know, and my ticket was cheap, so I'm not mad about it.
How was the racing back in the middle of the pack, and was it better than it sounded on the radio? Because the radio made it sound like it was just single file.
Well, and I don't know how it sounded on the radio, but I mean, it was just Larson was out to lunch, and so was Hamlin. But Larson, Hamlin was not going to catch him because Larson was great through traffic, but there was zero tire wear. Like you saw at the beginning of the race or heard, like I thought this was weird. Bowman started on pole, but when they started, they were running nose to tail throughout the whole field for like 30 laps. And I was like, this is weird. Like 30 laps into the race, they were all nose to tail running within a quarter of a lap of each other. And I was I've seen a lot of Bristol races. They get spread out, and obviously it's at Martinsville and Bristol. You get to where you're in the carousel where there's never a dry moment on the track. But 30 laps in, they were all still together. I was like, what is going on? I was
like,
it was
passing anyone.
Right, because they were trying to fill out the tire. Because, again, in practice, apparently they wore like crazy.
30 laps and the tires were dead, but it was in the low 40s temperature.
And I'm so sad. I'm so sad that it didn't stay that way.
On the radio, they interviewed the head Goodyear engineer before the race, and he said if the track temperature is over 80 degrees, the tires will not cord and the track will take rubber, is what he said.
Which is exactly what it did.
And on the radio, they said the track temperature at green flag was 103 degrees.
Yeah.
And it just track took rubber and the tires did not wear.
Once they figured out that they weren't going to wear, it was just.
Oh, Larson said bye.
Dude, I mean, it was just. It's what we don't want to see. Just qualifying laps. Just. It's just.
And it's not that we don't want to see one car dominate if he's better than everybody.
No, like Larson, a great job. But it's just that there was not enough passing throughout the field. Like I think there should have been a more challenge to Larson.
Yeah, and even if Larson has the best car and dominates, there wasn't tire fall off. He wasn't having to fight. There wasn't any entertainment in watching Kyle Larson fight a car on old tires. There wasn't any value in watching somebody who was running 5th or 6th lose their tires and drop to 15th.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't see comers and goers in the middle of the pack.
No.
Pretty much where you were at after 20 laps is you were stuck there for the next 480.
Which is why it really sucked for Joey. Because he got put to the rear after qualifying.
About it.
Dude, I was depressed.
I texted Coleman Presley, a spotter, after the race. I said, "You didn't jump off the spotter stand, did you?" And he said, "I thought about it."
Dude, I was depressed. Why did he get sent to the rear? I never heard.
I'm not sure. I did not hear that either.
But I know
he hit the wall in qualifying. Qualified 36th. So they worked on the car.
Okay.
And I think something that they changed, they had to drop to the rest of the way to the rear, but they were already in 36th,
Well,
so it's not like it mattered.
And I was so upset by it because any other time we'd been at Bristol, he could have worked himself through the field. But I don't know if I think it was partly because of the tires, and like he was just so far back in the pack he could not get away from the back, and he would get lapped. And then I think they missed the setup or something.
I think they had to have been expecting it to be a high tire wear race.
Yeah, I think so too. But I was so upset by it because I was like, this is not where Joey normally performs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a rough one as a Joey fan.
And moving on to just a little bit of housekeeping here at the end of the show, Kyle Kirkwood dominated the Long Beach GP in IndyCar. He led flag to flag.
Yeah,
and that's his second long.
I want to go back to watch
it
at some point because I love Long Beach. I really do. It's just such
I really
a good
like
track.
watching IndyCar, and I kind of forgot that the race started late, so I assumed it was over. And then I looked on my phone and it said Kyle Kirkwood leading late, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch the last 10 laps of the race." So I watched the last 10 laps, and Kirkwood had a decent gap on Alex Palou, who is on another level right now. By the way,
looking like it might be another championship year for him. Well, this would be his fourth if he gets it.
Yeah, and he's what, 26, 27?
Is he really?
Yeah, he's
Scott
not
Dixon
even 30
material.
Yet. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he might be. He's doing so good. They had to. Usually, when they compare stats of drivers through a certain amount of races through their career, they compare them to another contemporary driver, right?
Yeah.
They showed a graphic in practice comparing through the first 83 races of their career, comparing him to AJ Foyt. And his numbers are comparable to AJ Foyt.
That's crazy.
Through 83 races, he has 13 wins, and AJ Foyt had 23. But other than that, like the top 5s and top 10s were pretty similar, and the same amount of championships, and similar amount of laps led. It's just the overall wins weren't there.
Wow.
And then in F1, 2 stinkers in a row.
Yeah, it was tough, and I saw some stuff about this. I think Bahrain was definitely better. We'll talk about Japan. It was the tires. They could not pass whatsoever. It was actually more
a trend at the top level of racing right now. The tires, they cannot pass.
Yes. Well, and I heard a lot of podcasters talking about this, and just that the way the cars are right now and all this stuff, like we are about like someone said, is this the qualifying world championship? Like we've seen a lot of stuff just that it's so difficult to pass, and Suzuka is a great track, and it does have some passing zones, but I mean, like you saw, Lando Norris was absolutely faster than Max Verstappen, could not get by him. Like it was just impossible to pass. But that was that, and then they ran at Bahrain this weekend, and I'm such a big Piastri fan. Like, yeah, dude, I think he's championship material, absolutely. And he was out to lunch in that race as well.
Lets him be. I think McLaren really wants Lando to be their number 1 guy.
I don't know, but look,
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they're both running.
They just need to let them fight it out because they are respectful.
But it just seems like on pit stop,
it's not going to be a Red Bull deal or a Mercedes deal where the drivers will get it. I reckon Piastri is a little bit more conservative than Lando, and so I don't think Piastri would risk something unless he knew it was going to work.
I just feel like McLaren is going to give Lando, like, when it comes down to pit strategy, you can only pit one car at a time in F1. I just feel like they're going to be giving Lando that opportunity first, and they're going to be giving him the more optimal lap to pit if it's a situation where one driver needs to stay out longer. Lando's going to be the one that stays out.
Here's the thing.
If one driver needs to short pit, Lando's going to get to short pit.
I think, and part of me thinks that's a mistake. Like, I just think you need to let your drivers do their thing. They're both performing well, but I think, I don't know. I just think Piastri is in great form right now. And, Lando Norris is a driver that can get momentum and he'll run with it. But he just doesn't have it at the moment. He doesn't have that great momentum. I just think you let them fight it out, and as a team, create the best strategies for the team. and whether that be, Piastri was on pole. So we're going to strategize for Piastri here because as long as they're both still contending at the front, they're going to win the World Constructors Championship, and they're both 1-2 in the World Drivers Championship right now. So just keep doing what you're doing right now. The Red Bull is off right now. Like, obviously, Max Verstappen able to wheel at Japan, but at Bahrain, it was awful. And so, and Ferrari, they found a little bit in Bahrain, but again, they're still, that Ferrari is not where it needs to be. The Mercedes, George Russell is doing very well right now. Antonelli
Russell is really impressing me in the past.
He really has. He has stepped into that role.
He is really becoming one of the best drivers in F1.
He is really
one of the
good.
best drivers on the grid.
And Antonelli putting in great performances, but again, them two, they're not performing where the McLarens are. So I just think as McLaren, keep doing what you're doing. Don't try to police anything. Just take it race by race. Whoever qualifies wherever, take it like that. Don't shoot yourselves in the foot.
So, I mean, we have been at it a long time. I think it's about time we're going to wrap it up for the week.
I think so, too. I think we saw a great week. We're going to have racing action back to you in about 2 weeks' time. I will have just gotten back from Virginia for the second time, so we'll get to talk about that a little bit. What else? I don't know when the next Cars Tour race is. I don't think it's within those 2 weeks. I actually haven't looked at a lot of schedules, so we're really going to have to look at you and see what is coming up next.
NASCAR, Xfinity, and Trucks
That's going to be fun. That's going to
be fun. Cup Series guys getting Easter Sunday off. Also, I want to wish everybody a happy Easter.
Happy Easter. So we're going to figure out something. Timothy should be back. We're gonna hound him, make sure he's
got
back.
That camera. He's got to use it,
dude. We're excited. We're finally gonna get a triple box.
It's gonna be great.
So, but
we're
anyway,
gonna test out a quad box at some point. Get a interview and all three of us.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. So
have so many people in here. We look like the Brady Bunch.
I know. Well, we will sign off. We will catch y'all in the next episode. Until then, we'll see ya.